In the following discussion, we spoke with Alvertos Revach, founder and director of Revach Family Foundation, founder and investments director of Humble Holdings, co-founder of Aira, and former commercial director of Amvyx. We explore investing, sustainability, ethical capitalism, and how capital, when guided by purpose, can help build a better world. This is our conversation with Alvertos Revach.
Amvyx distributes world-class spirits, wines, and beers in Greece. How has consumer behavior changed over the last decade?
Oh, wow. Wasn't expecting a question about the company, the past. So I haven't been involved with the company for the past 10 years. I'm still on the board, so I'm not on the daily. What we've noticed is people are drinking less over the past few years. It's due to health reasons. People are more mindful. It's also financial reasons. People spending less on going out and having fun. People are drinking differently. So more cocktails, lower alcohol, more RTDs, less whiskey, more vodka, more gin, more tequila. Now, if we go back like 15 years or 16 years to like 2009, the total market has dropped about 50%.
Wow.
Half the market was wiped out to the financial crisis from 2009 to 2015. But now with tourism increasing, that's helped a bit. Otherwise, things would be much worse than they are. I think that last year the total market decreased by like 1 or 2%, and it's steadily and slowly decreasing. And I think that's going to be the future also. People are going to keep drinking less, be more mindful of their health.
So you described the Greek crisis as a lesson in understanding the real structure of the economy. How has that played a role in any of the ventures that you've had?
Well, I left Greece because of the financial crisis. I saw that this country is not built to withstand serious crisis like we went through, and it deeply affected the way I felt as a business person doing business in Greece as an entrepreneur. So that was one of the reasons why I decided in 2015 to leave and move my base to Luxembourg. Was exactly that I saw that the country doesn't have the structures, either societal, political, financial, business structures needed to withstand serious crisis. And there will always be more crisis. I'm sure there's another one coming up, and then things will get better, and then another one will come. And where you are as a person, as a business, is very important during the crisis. We saw that other countries went out of the crisis much faster than Greece. Why? Because they had the structures, they had the mentality. Did we learn enough as a country, as Greeks from the crisis? I don't think so. I don't think we've learned enough. And one of the main reasons, the crisis was one of the main reasons I decided to say, I've had enough and go somewhere else.
And what structures would you say do you think are missing in Greece in order to be able to combat a crisis, for example?
That's a good question. I would start with education. I think we're in a private school here, right? And this is a good school. But I would say that 95% of Greek kids cannot afford to go to a private good school. And I think public education is pretty terrible in Greece. With few exceptions. I'm sure there's some very good public schools out there and some very good teachers. But starting with education, and then the way people get into a college with a Panellinias, and that is the whole system is so outdated and just produces numbers. It doesn't produce people thinking people, and those people then don't go on to make the societal structures needed to make sure that we can get out of crisis or even avoid crises. The political structures that we have as a country, with our politicians, which is the same in most countries in the world, only caring about getting reelected or getting elected, that doesn't help with crisis. We saw that in the last financial crisis where nobody wanted to take the responsibility and say, you know what, we are going to do the necessary changes in our society and our economy to get out of it. I mean, we wasted so many years saying, no, we don't want to sign the agreements, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's the way the society is structured, and I think it all starts with education, with actually not just education, with what we would call in Greece pedia, which is kind of lacking. Yeah.
Do you pose any other kind of how do you think that we could solve that issue with education? Do you think it's just more money? Do you think it's more focus on it? Do you think people don't really care as much? Is there not enough awareness? Where do you think the problem stems from?
It stems from pedia, the word pedia. I don't know how do you describe it. It's not education in English. Pedia is
like upbringing in a sense.
Raising.
Yes. How what I would do if I was running the country, I would say, okay, listen, we're going to start with the first class of Δημοτικό, and we're going to make the best Δημοτικό first class in the world. So we're going to throw everything at that first one class and change the syllabus, make sure that the teachers that are teaching are the best teachers in Greece. And then I would go to the second class of Δημοτικό next year and the third class. And then it would take 12 years to fix the system. 1 year of school at a time, and just change everything. I would bring people from countries like Finland to address the issues and to help us fix things. But the moment you start doing this to change the educational system, immediately you have the teachers and the people who don't want things to change protesting and going on strike, and that's why things never change, because the few are actually running the country. In a democracy, the many run the country. In Greece, the few are the ones who get out on the streets and block the roads and say, no, we don't want. It's never the many. The many are the silent majority, and the few are usually in Greece are the ones who are very loud and screaming and cause the problems. To change things, you need to change things at the basis, and I think the basis in this country starts with education. We don't have the educational system we need to move forward as a country in the future. How do we change it? We start with one class at a time by bringing people from abroad who know how to do these things and trust them to make the changes. It's a political issue, and I'm not very hopeful that it will ever happen, though. Yeah.
What were the biggest challenges in taking over a long-standing company like Amvyx?
You mean when I started working there?
Yes.
Well, the biggest challenge is that I knew nothing, This is a typical family company story. My dad took over from his father when he died in 1967. It was a very small company back then. And he built the company from scratch. Different century, different situation, different everything, different economy. And he built the company to something very big, very successful. And when I was born in 1972, he knew that what I had to do was take over the company at some point. So I remember when I was at Georgetown in the 90s, early 90s, I asked him when I was finishing, I said, could I stay for like a year, maybe do an internship somewhere, and then maybe do a master's? He said, no, you have to come back. You have to do your military service, and then you have to come work for the company because I'm getting tired and you have to take over. So I never really had a choice whether I was going to go into that line of business or not. It was like, since I was born, that's what you're going to do when you grow up. So I did my bachelor's degree in international business and marketing at Georgetown, then came back, did my 21, if I'm not mistaken, once at military service, complete waste of my life. And then on the 1st of January, 1997, 25-year-old, I get in the company. I immediately get the title commercial director. No idea what I'm doing. And I start trying to put some of the things I learned in college into practice, make some changes, and then I'm learning the business from my dad. This is the typical Greek company family story. And it's all wrong. Nothing is right about it. It's not right for parents to tell their kids that they have to do this and, bring them up to put them in a company. It's not right for kids not to challenge that decision. And usually, even if you're a good entrepreneur, you're rarely a good manager if you haven't managed other companies or other things. So there I was, a 25-year-old kid trying to manage a multi-million euro company, having come out of college and the army. And okay, my dad did the exact same thing. He never managed anything else apart from this company. That is it puts a huge limitation on what you can do in a company. So if going back to your question, I don't know. I was lucky, I don't know what happened. I just decided at some point that that's not what I wanted to do anymore.
What lessons did it teach you, kind of getting thrown straight into it? What harsh lessons did it teach you early on?
It taught me how to be a leader, because I had to lead, just like my dad was leading. It taught me that, I had a lot of responsibilities, especially when the crisis started in 2009, and I had to start firing people because the company was going to go bankrupt if we didn't downsize. A lot of responsibility. I think the biggest lesson was exactly what I said before, that this is all wrong. The biggest lesson is don't do this to your kids, and kids, don't listen to your parents when it comes to these things. Question it.
Yeah. And you mentioned you studied international business and marketing, correct?
Yeah.
Nowadays, we see countless stories of people when you ask them, in your position, in your job, are you using anything from your college degree? And they would say no. Would you say that you had a similar experience to that? Or were there any skills that you learned in college that transferred into you managing Amvyx?
I think I was lucky because a few of the skills I learned at Georgetown did go into Amvyx. Like, for example, finance and accounting. I understood how the company was running, the numbers. And that's very important if you're running a company, to understand the numbers underneath. Marketing, that was my passion. I loved marketing. We worked with great brands. So marketing is not really something you learn. I think it's something you either have it inside you or you don't. But you learn the principles, you learn a few things. Management is definitely not something you learn. You cannot learn to manage things. You either are a manager or you're not a manager. And you learn to manage only through work, not through college. International business, there was a lot of ethics being taught at Georgetown. It's a Catholic school. That was useful also. Trying to apply ethics that you learned at school in the Greek business environment in the 90s was quite tricky, I'm telling you. I'm not going to go into that in much detail, but it was tricky,
Could you describe one small change that you implemented at Amvyx that later caused a large impact?
Yes. IT. So I was, okay, here we're talking mid-90s, right? So IT is not huge yet. We just started having internet and emails and all that. But I was at Georgetown, I saw how computers were helping us work. And when I went to Amvyx, we had very, very outdated IT systems. So one of the first things I told my dad is that I cannot work with this. I remember the first day I arrived, there was a Macintosh on my desk, the old Mac. Most kids will not know what that is. Google it. Macintosh 1994. And I turned it on. There was a button on the back. I was just sitting there. Like 2 minutes go by. The thing is just starting up. It's like 3 minutes go by. I'm like, okay, this is not very productive. So I said, okay, we have to change the whole IT system. There was no way to get data out of the accounting system into my computer without first printing it out and then putting it on Excel. I'm like, okay, this is all wrong. So I did a whole project. One of the first things I did was a whole project to modernize our IT system. And that evolved slowly and steadily into a very sophisticated IT system that we have today. Very useful, because if you don't have enough information, you cannot make any decisions. So I think that's one of the key things I changed IT and implemented.
Okay. Just to shift the conversation a bit into your, I guess, investing philosophy, you stated that if I'm not convinced something is good for the planet, I simply don't participate. Have you ever walked away from any highly profitable opportunity
Oh, yeah.
because it didn't meet your ethical standards?
Oh, of course. Of course. It's easy. Well, it's easy if you have money.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way. So once you get to a point in life where you have enough to get by the way you want to get by, and that's point one, then you can start making decisions in a different way. You say, okay, I think that what I have set aside is enough for me to live a comfortable life until I'm gone, right? Then you can start making your decisions based on your ethical values. Now, okay, not everybody shares ethical values. Let's start with that. There are things happening in our world right now where I question if people even have basic ethics. Okay, but my ethical point of view is that I don't want to harm people with what I'm doing. I want to do good for people, and I want to do good for the planet. So many times, I was having a discussion with my investment manager recently about how we're going to restructure the investment portfolio that we have. And I'm not talking funds and startups. I'm talking about the core investment portfolio of shares, et cetera, et cetera. I told him, I want to downsize my U.S. stock portfolio. I don't want to support the U.S. stock market at this point in my life, and this point of the U.S. history. I never invest in companies that are bad for the planet. I don't care if I'm going to make a lot of money investing in petrol now that it's drill, baby, drill, or whatever. I would never do it. I try to invest in companies that are, as ethical as possible. So yes, I've given up. I've sold a lot of my old stocks and companies that were very profitable, but they didn't adhere to my ethical values. Again, the most important thing here is, how highly do you value money? How much do you think you need once you already have enough? And how do you feel with yourself inside once you break your ethical codes just to make more money? Everybody has a different answer to that.
Can you describe the moment you realized investing could be used as a tool to make the world a better place, not just to make money?
I don't think it was a moment. I think it was a period of my life that it was during the crisis that I started thinking that, is there anything else out there? And then I started reading a lot of books. Not a specific one changed my perspective in life. But, I think the key idea started with a very simple premise, which says, the moment I die, it doesn't really matter what I have in my bank accounts. Then the second idea is, do I know when I'm going to die? No. We all make assumptions like, I'm going to live to be 80, I'm going to live to be 90.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I get hit by a truck outside today. You don't know. So if you agree that the day you die, it doesn't matter what you have in the bank, and people will question that and say, hey, what about my kids? What about your kids? If you wait until you're 90 and your kids are 60 to give them anything, you're doing something seriously wrong. Give your kids whatever you're going to give them when they're like in their 30s, if they're good kids. If they're not good kids, don't give them anything. Great book, highly suggested. It's called Die with Zero. Very interesting book. So die with zero, right? So if you're going to die with zero, why keep building up your more and more and more money? So if money isn't the number one thing in your life, then you can start doing investments in a different way and say, okay, I do want to invest. I do want to make money. Profit is important for me, but people and the planet are more important. and they have to walk hand in hand with profit. So starting with, does it really matter how much I have the day I die? Working back from that, it changed my entire perspective on how much money I want to make. Do I really need to be a billionaire? Like, does it make a difference in my life? How much do I really need? So will I take less profit if it's good for people and planet? Yes. Will I lose money for people and the planet? That's called charity. Yes, and I will also do it. Have I made investments that I've lost money for people and the planet? Yes, I have. Have I made investments that I made money? Yes, I have. But it has to be people and planet along with profit. That's what impact investing is, as you very well know.
Okay. You also stated that only investors can save the world, which is a powerful claim. Why do you believe investors hold more leverage than, let's say, governments and firms?
Well, who elects governments? I don't say the people. So when you go to vote, you've been influenced by media, right? You've been influenced by social media. You've been influenced by so many things. Most people vote under the influence, not under the influence of alcohol or drugs, but under some influence.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who influence your vote are the powerful people who own the big companies. Now, if imagine what would happen if all investors pulled their money from Meta because Meta is supporting a specific politician. Would Meta keep supporting that politician? No, most likely not. So the governments are elected by people who are influenced by big corporations. And who control these corporations is the investors, the shareholders. If the shareholders think that Meta is doing a terrible job and start shorting the stock and selling the stock, Meta is going to change the way they influence people, and the government is going to change. And I'm not talking just Meta, any big company. Look at Amazon, look at, it's the investors who, in my opinion, have the ultimate power to make the changes that we need in this world. If everybody was investing in impact, the world would be a glorious place very quickly. If everybody was investing in solar power and wind instead of more fossil fuels, then we would, improve the climate crisis much faster than I hope we will at some point. That's why I think investors are the key.
To what extent do you think those investors are morally obligated to go out and do good with their money?
Oh, they're not. No, there's no obligation unless you have kids and you love them, I think. I mean, that's. I don't have kids, and I don't plan to have any. Well, I don't have kids that I know of. Kidding. No, but I think that if you have kids and you care about their future is not just financial, right? Yeah, okay. You want to make sure your kids are healthy. Can they be happy and healthy in a world where the ecosystem is collapsing? And this is not like a lot of people say, oh, come on, it's not really true. It's not happening. Read a book. Read 99% of what climate scientists are saying and agreeing on is that we're in deep shit. Our ecosystems are collapsing. We've lost something like 70% of biodiversity over the past 100 years, and we're still losing more. So I understand. I mean, you want your kids to be comfortable and have money and all that, but is that the most important thing you want for your kids? Don't you want them to live in a planet which is healthy and thriving? So start to think differently,
You've warned that by 2050, if nothing changes, the balance of who lives and who dies could tilt towards who dies, which is what you've kind of been elaborating on. How do you think, maybe, other than investing, do you think people should shift away from, I guess, greed and personal gain in order to combat this? Would that help, and to what extent?
Yeah,
and how do you think they can do that?
Kumbaya. No, I'm kidding. Listen, this is it's an uphill battle, and it will not be won. I'm not hopeful, okay? Because all we're doing is consuming. We've built a world around consumption, and we more and more and more and more. It's very, very difficult in this environment where the entire economy, the global economy, is based on consumption. If we stop consuming, which is what we need to do to, reduce our emissions and help the planet and help animals, et cetera, if we stop consuming, the global economy is going to collapse. At the same time, we have a way to shift away from that. It's by buying better products, buying fewer products, buy more of what you need and less of what you think you need when you don't really need. But the companies are not making the shift towards that because the investors are not making the shift towards that. That's why investors are very important. If you ask an investor, would you like the company to sell more and make more profit so that you get more dividends? The investor will say, hell yeah. And they will not say, yeah, but hell yeah, but let's make sure the environment is okay. Nobody cares. Very few people care about the environment, right? So
how do you apply that ideology of consuming less in your everyday life, and what do you think is replicable for anybody listening?
Oh, it's okay. So my splurge is travel. Okay, as you very well know, Manueli. I splurge on traveling. And I think if we shifted spending from goods to services, because traveling is mostly a service, you stay in a hotel. Okay, I travel a lot. I calculate and offset all my personal carbon emissions from all my flights, my car, and my house electricity use every year by 110%. It costs me quite a bit of money, but I feel a little better that I do that. I am responsible for a massive amount of carbon dioxide being emitted from my flights, and I feel bad about it, but okay. I try to offset it to feel a little better. What can you do? It's easy, really. Buy less. Buy fewer things. I'll give you an example. I've lost some weight, and I'm going to need a new wardrobe very soon. I'm going to go to vestiaire.com, vestiercollective.com, and order secondhand clothes. So my clothes don't have to be new. There's some excellent secondhand sites out there that you can buy your clothes. You can buy secondhand anything. Why do you need anything to be new? Okay, underwear, socks. Okay, they're going to be probably new, but I'm going to buy some new shirts, maybe a new suit, some new jeans. They don't need to be new. They can be lightly used by somebody else. And that's a better way to buy things. And I try to buy things when I need them, not just because they're on offer. I go to a mall. I used to go to malls, to outlet malls in the US. I go nuts. Oh my God, it's 75% off. I have to have it. I would be buying all this crap. And then I would never wear it. And I would sit there. I'm like, oh, I have too much shit. I have to start giving it away. And then I would give it away. And it would become somebody else's problem. Now I did a big cleanup a couple of years ago of my wardrobe. I have very few things there. And I just buy, my jeans tore, for example. Can I fix them? No. Okay, so I'll recycle my jeans and buy a new pair from Vestiaire or somewhere used. There's so many things you can do, and they're very easy, and they actually save you money. Everything out there is meant to take your money away from you. All the ads you see on Instagram and on TikTok, just say no. It's easy.
You've also said that a successful entrepreneur's business should bring happiness, make money, and make the world better. How do you apply this threefold principle at Humble Holdings?
Well, that's what we've tried to do with our investments. We've tried to find startups and funds, startups who are applying these principles to what they're doing, trying to make better products, better services for people on the planet. And we've also invested in a number of funds which have the same principle. We've invested in vegan food funds, funds that are trying to do clean energy. So as much as possible, not exclusively, but as much as possible, I've tried to invest money into things which apply these principles in real life, in making products which are better for you, better for the planet, and better for people. So I'll give you an example. I co-founded a company that makes vegan luxury women's shoes in the US back in 2019.
Yeah,
Aera, yeah. So we said, okay, what is wrong with this industry? First of all, let's make sure we make our shoes in the right place with the right people. So we worked with family-owned companies in Italy that pay their employees a living wage. and make sure that they have the health insurance and everything that they need. Then secondly, do we want to use leather? No, leather is terrible for animals and the planet. So our shoes will be vegan, but they also have to be of great quality and great design so people actually desire them. It doesn't mean that they're going to be approachable and affordable. They're luxury shoes. They cost an arm and a leg to make. But we did something that is usually bad for the planet and bad for people. We did it in a way that is good for the planet and good for people. So that was one of the first things I did as an investor and entrepreneur in this space with this philosophy.
And through Aira, do you think that sustainable luxury goods can now or maybe in the future compete with traditional luxury goods?
Not through Aira necessarily, but through the thinking behind Aira. So yes, luxury goods have enormous profitability. By sacrificing a little bit of that profitability, companies can make their products more sustainable and friendly to the people who make them. There are luxury companies out there who produce their goods in ways which are inexcusable given how much they charge for them, right? So I don't think there should be any luxury companies out there making goods in factories that don't pay their employees a living wage, that don't care for the environment. And I'm pretty sure that slowly but steadily we should also go away from leather, which is really bad for animals, really bad for the planet. Use new materials. There's a lot of cool new materials coming out, which are not plastics, from cacti, from residue of other agricultural production that could be used. Stella McCartney is a great example of a luxury brand that adheres to these principles. So they make sure that their goods are vegan, shoes, bags, everything is vegan, and everything is well made in factories which pay living wages, etc. That's a brand I would support. And actually, I gift my wife some Stella McCartney stuff.
You mentioned earlier that your largest splurge is travel. Could you please share a travel experience that completely shifted your perspective on sustainability or the environment, if it exists?
Okay, good question. I'll tell you one that shocked me. It's when I went to the Philippines. So we were heading to a private island, whatever, summer, cool, let's go swim destination. And we decided to spend a few days in Manila, right? I don't know if anybody's been to Manila listening to us, but Manila has an area, I forget what it's called, which is like the nice modern part. And it's like you step a few meters away from that area and you're in the slums. And when you look at what people throw away in the rivers there, it was just shocking. And we're talking, it's like an enormous amount of people living in a very small area. And it's like they don't care what they throw away into the rivers because they don't care, because they don't have any money and, they cannot even cover the basic living. So they don't really care where they throw their trash. Seeing all that rivers of trash around Manila, and knowing that is going to end up in the ocean and that's going to end up in the fish and I'm going to end up eating that at some point, that was kind of shocking. But nothing else really comes to mind as far as travel and sustainability.
Why do you think, considering how big of an issue keeping the planet sustainable at this stage, why do you think there's so little awareness towards it, and why do you think people just seem to not care at all?
Because the money's on the opposite side.
Yeah.
If you look, who's running this planet, right? Who are the multi-billionaires, the $100+ billion people? Who make a list and then do some research and see how much do they care about the environment and people, like from their statements, from what they've been giving to charity. Charity is a good way to dress yourself and say, hey, I do a lot of charity. I care about people. No, you don't care about people if all you're doing is a little bit of charity and the rest is, destroying the planet with your products and services, right? So the people who are running the planet right now, I don't think they care. And I wonder if they have, I think most of them do have kids. I know at least one that has a ton of kids. So yeah, that's why. If the people running the planet don't really care, if we care, it doesn't matter.
How do you think that shift should be made to the people who are running the planet?
Stop investing in their companies. Stop buying their products. Make them care. You know. Will I give up my Amazon subscription, my Amazon Prime subscription anytime soon? Yes, I will, because I don't really like what's happening with that company. And I'm not planning to renew my Prime subscription anytime soon. Will I give up my Instagram and Meta accounts? More tricky, because I have a lot of history there. I have a lot of things that I've uploaded, and it's like a diary for me. I recently canceled my my Disney Plus.
I saw that after the Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, because I don't think Disney should have done that. I don't think they should have bowed to the desires of specific people when it came to that issue. And even though they hired him back, I said, no, sorry, I just canceled my subscription. I don't need it. I can just have Netflix or whatever. It's enough. I don't need to have everything. So you vote every day. And the most important vote you have is not when you go to the polls. Your most important vote is your money. Your money votes for you every day. How you spend your money and to whom you give it is the most important decision you make on a daily basis. Every time you go to the periptero and you buy a soft drink, you could be supporting, a big multinational corporation, or you could be supporting a local Greek company, right? You could be buying biscuits from an international conglomerate that doesn't care about the environment, or you could be buying biscuits from a mom and pop store in your neighborhood. Every day you vote with your money, and that's how you bring about change. If you don't care enough how you spend your money, you're not going to bring about any change.
And having said that, there's obviously many people who may not agree directly with your views.
Of course.
I know someone very close to me who works at Aramco, who fully disagrees with your views. And there's many people that would also say, well, my vote doesn't count that much if I don't have, say, as many votes, because maybe I have way less money and I'm trying to put it towards a good cause, but then someone else has way more money, is just constantly hurting the environment. And then they would say, well, why should I guess, restrict myself or make my life harder when my vote doesn't matter too much in the long term? What would you say to those people?
All right, let's start with somebody who works at Aramco. Okay. We can agree and disagree on many things, but we cannot agree and disagree on facts. Climate change is real, and emissions, CO2 equivalent emissions, are the main cause of it, right? If you're burning fossil fuels, you're working in the wrong direction. There is nothing we can discuss about that. That is a fact. There's a lot of people saying, no, that's not true, et cetera, et cetera. You can't dispute facts. Facts are facts, science is science. If we start disputing facts and science, then we're in la la land, okay? Now, I understand if somebody's making a great salary and, living a great life, maybe they don't care about the environment enough to say, I don't want to work in this company anymore. Maybe if somebody's working for a cigarette company, for example, making a great bonus, maybe they say, I don't really care if some people get cancer. It's their problem, not mine. I used to work and I co-own an alcohol company, a company that distributes alcohol. Alcohol is not a virgin industry.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people drink and drive and get killed. A lot of people underage are drinking and they shouldn't. Alcohol is not good for you. It's not something you should be drinking. In moderation, alcohol is okay. Out of moderation, which I don't control, it's not okay. So I'm not a saint, okay? My primary income still comes from, not from my investments, but from my family company, Amvyx. So disclaimer, okay? Now, after that, though, somebody who's not making enough money cannot prioritize the environment and cannot prioritize people, because maybe they cannot afford to go to the supermarket and buy the good product, which is good for the environment and good for people. They have to buy the cheaper one, which is not made in the right way, and it's not good for the planet. But this is the core of the problem, though. And this is, I've addressed this in the past. We should be working towards making the good thing the easy thing. Right now, the bad thing is the easy and cheap. We should be reversing that. How do we do that? By government subsidies. For example, products that have a lot of sugar in many countries are taxed very heavily. There's a sugar tax on sugary products which are bad for you. And they take that tax and they can spend it on things that are good for you. Making, for example, vegetables, reducing VAT on vegetables, making them cheaper for people to buy. There are ways to shift the cost from expensive products to inexpensive products by saying, okay, I will tax the bad things and give subsidies to the good things. But we're not doing that.
Do you think government intervention is the only way to make that change?
No, that's the last frontier.
How else do you think we can make that change? Concretely.
Again, investors. If many investors invest in the right things and the money flows towards these companies can produce more of the products and the services which are good for you and good for the planet and good for people in a way that makes them cheaper and more affordable. If these companies do not have enough investment going in them, they will keep having fewer sales. They won't have enough money to do marketing and spread the word and get more clients so that they make more of it and can reduce the cost and make it more affordable. So investors is the first step to making these products more accessible. If more people invest in companies that are good for people, good for the planet, these companies will produce goods which are more affordable for a more mass audience.
And is that what you're trying to do through the Revach Family Foundation?
No. The Revach Family Foundation, you did your research, didn't you? It's something that it's the first time I talk about it, by the way. So the Revach Family Foundation is a pure charity organization. Its purpose is twofold: education and animal welfare. Education I've already addressed, right?
Yes.
How are we going to make sure that more kids get better education? Government intervention, decisions at political level is one thing. In the meantime, can we make sure that more kids can come to schools like this one, for example, who cannot afford to come here? So we've already established a scholarship. What I'm trying to do is one of the first things I'm trying to do is link the three pillars that made me who I am today, which are my high school, Moreitis, my college, Georgetown, and my company, Amvyx. So I'm trying to link those three. What am I doing? So the Revach Family Foundation is giving scholarships to underprivileged kids who work at Amvyx to go to Moreitis school for the last 3 years for LICU. If they want to do IB, great. Then the idea was to link Moreitis with Georgetown by having a scholarship available for Moreitis students who cannot afford to go to Georgetown for 4 years with an undergrad scholarship. That has been put on ice. Oh, I said ice. That has been put on ice for, I would hope, obvious reasons of what's happening in the US right now. And then that links the three together in a way that supports education, right? I'd like to do more things in the future, but I'm starting with these two as far as education is concerned. Then another thing I feel deeply about is animal welfare. I love animals, all animals. I don't eat meat. I don't wear leather. I don't eat poultry. I still eat seafood. I'm not going to say I feel good about it or bad about it. I do. It's where you draw the line. I've drawn the line on land animals, so I don't eat land animals. And I'd like to do as much as possible to solve the ongoing crisis that we have in Greece with strays. We have a lot of, in Athens, not so many dogs anymore, but if you go outside of Athens, it's crazy how many stray dogs there are. And cats are everywhere.
Yeah.
neuter and spay programs. I want to support shelters in Greece. I want to support shelters outside of Greece, like in Cyprus or in other countries. A lot of work to be done in that. And that's the purpose of the Revach Family Foundation. It's going to do education and animal welfare, and hopefully it will continue the work after I'm gone. So I want that to be my legacy.
To someone who would say, well, animals aren't really something that's directly affecting us, they're not something that's that important, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I understand that, because we're not raised in an environment where we have direct contact with the animals we eat, right? None of us has ever been to a slaughterhouse. I'm guessing. I think no one listening to this podcast has ever been to a slaughterhouse. Some of us might have been in a farm, right, and seen the animals, but I think most likely none of us has been to an industrial farm where most animals are raised. Like 99% of the animals around the planet are raised in that we eat, like chicken, pork, beef. They're raised in CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. CAFOs, we have a word for it. And we've industrialized, and we just forget where these animals come from, how they live. We don't care. We just order a steak or a burger or some eggs or milk or whatever we're ordering. We have no idea, no connection to the animals anymore. And the industry, they doesn't want us to have connection to the animals, because the moment you get connected to the animals that you consume, it changes your life. The moment you go and visit a farm and you pet a cow, you're like, oh, whoa, or you see a pig, or a chicken comes running to you, and you see it's like it's like a dog, it's like a cat, it's like the animals I love. What am I doing? It sort of changes your mentality around it.
Could you discuss how that moment in your life came that you decided, okay, I don't want to have any more meat or poultry? Why you came? I mean, you kind of described why, but like why you made that decision then and not earlier or later?
Yeah, well, I had no idea where my food was coming from, right? I didn't care. I was eating tons of meat, and I loved it. I loved steaks and paidakia and risoles. Oh, God. And then I had an issue, a health issue. I started to have a lot of acid reflux, and I got esophagitis, and it was quite bad. Like my esophagus was burnt to a crisp. So my doctor said, listen, man, you're not doing the right thing. I think you should cut down on meat. I'm like, doctor, come on, cutting down on meat. What are you talking about? I love meat. He's like, can you cut down a little bit on meat? Eat less. So I said, okay. I started eating less meat. This was about 15 years ago. And the problem started subsiding. So I said, okay, my body's telling me something, that I'm eating too much meat, which is very hard to digest. I said, let's start reading about this whole thing. So I started reading about, the health implications of eating meat. And then I started reading about the implications for the animals. I started reading some excellent books, like one called Eating Animals. And then I started reading about the implications of animal farming to the environment. And none of it made sense to me. And it was like I opened my eyes all of a sudden. I said, okay, whoa, what am I doing? I'm harming myself. I'm causing harm to myself. I'm causing harm to animals, and I love animals, and I'm causing harm to the planet. So, whoa. So eating less meat became eating no meat. I didn't stop eating meat because I didn't like meat. I stopped eating meat because I love animals and the planet more than I like eating meat. So that was a very easy decision for me, and I don't miss it. The only thing I miss, but I haven't cheated, is kebab from Thanasis in Monastiraki. Every time I think about that, man, yes, I don't know the guy. I mean, I don't know the owners, but that's the only thing that my mind still says, oh, wouldn't you like one of those?
To someone who would tell you meat is healthy, it's natural for humans to eat, we're carnivores, like we need to, obviously we're not carnivores, but we're carnivores, we need to eat meat, it's what's healthiest. What would you say to that? And what would you say about how meat and industrial farming, like you mentioned before, actually is so straining on the environment?
Well, first I would tell them, go study a little bit and look into the facts and read some of the, the scientific literature around all this, what you're telling me, and check yourself first and then come back and let's talk. because none of that makes any sense, right? First, we're not carnivores. We're omnivores. Cats are carnivores. Cats, if you give your cat a diet of vegetables, she will die. If you give a human a diet of vegetables, as long as it's the right vegetables and you get enough protein from them and legumes and all that, you're fine. Yeah. That's why vegans are still alive. Otherwise, they would die. They'll be dropping like flies on the street. Then, there's a certain pleasure to food. I mean, we don't eat food because we have to. We eat food because we want to, we like to. I found substitutes. Like, I was very happy when Beyond Meat came out and Impossible Foods came out, right? Because as I said, I didn't stop eating meat because I didn't like meat. So when those products came out and I could have a burger that tasted like meat, which came from plants, I was so excited and so happy. And I'm still excited and happy every time I have it when I go out. And there's more and more of these products coming out, although the meat industry has scored a big win against them. I don't know if you've heard.
You mentioned Beyond and Impossible Foods. They came out, and when they started, they were doing really, really strong, and their stock prices went massively up. But over the past couple of years, they've really not done well at all.
Tanked.
Why do you think that's the case?
Because there was massive media against them. You have these small companies being supported by a few investors, right? And then you have the meat industry, which is a $1 trillion industry around the world, right? And the meat industry sees this as a threat. They will use the money they have to say, oh, but these are ultra-processed foods. They're bad for you. They're terrible. They're bad for everything. Meat is natural. Meat is good. Meat is this. Meat is that. Nothing natural about 99% of the meat you eat. The companies that raise the cows that we eat, there's nothing natural about the process there. Antibiotics, this, that, CO2 emissions, methane emissions. It's all there in the scientific facts, but does anybody really care to sit down and read, scientific facts? No, we get our media from our phones. You go like, oh, okay, So it's all. I understand why people don't care. It's hard to care. But when I give I don't know if you know that I gave a graduation speech at Moreitis a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there was a video on that.
My theme was care. This is the thing that I always tell people: try to care. Try to care about other people. Try to care about yourself. Care about the planet. Care is the key word here. If you don't care, if you don't give a shit, okay. But if you care, then your life starts to change. Then you start to see the bigger picture. If you don't care, then you don't care what you eat. You don't care what you put inside you. You don't care what media you consume. You don't care about what you're learning. You don't care what's going to happen to you in the future. You don't care about anything. Once you start to care, all this changes.
So with mentioning everything you've said so far, would you then see philanthropy as separate from investing, philosophy-wise?
Oh, yeah, definitely. If we want to change the world, we have to change the way we use money. Philanthropy and charity in general has to be secondary. We cannot change the world. We're just maintaining a system through charity and philanthropy. We're keeping people poor and then we're giving them scraps, right? If you really want to change the world, you have to make things better for people on the planet, make sure that more people are earning a living wage, not a minimum wage, a living wage. Living wage is defined as the minimum amount of money that you make in a year to be able to afford your rent, your utilities, being able to go out a couple of times a week to a restaurant. It's a certain number of things that you have to be able to do. Most people in the world don't earn a living wage. Most people in the world just, they just make it every month and every month.
Yeah, paycheck to paycheck.
Paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. And
then you have somebody who might be the world's first trillionaire soon. How does that make any sense? It doesn't to me. I mean, I'm not poor, okay? I'm rich. I have money. But how much is...
Too much, I guess.
Yeah. Is that person going to live forever? Maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe he has a way. He's found a way. We don't know about it. But why are you accumulating so much wealth? Why is it important if you have $1 billion to make your second billion? What difference will it make in your life?
Well, I mean, we see a lot of times with these very hyper successful people that at the end of their life, they usually give huge sums of money away.
like the Giving Pledge, for example.
And also, I mean, just from an economic sense, they contribute so much to society regardless. But I get your point. But I just wanted to, like, you could still argue the other side though.
So think about this. Jeff Bezos just fired 300 journalists at the Washington Post, right? The cost of keeping them on the payroll is probably the fuel he uses on his yacht every summer.
Yeah.
Okay? So he made 300 people miserable by firing them. And then if at the end of his life he gives everything to charity, that will change the lives of people in the future. What about the people who work for him today? What about the workers at Amazon warehouses who go on strike every year or try to unionize and cannot unionize? So to accumulate vast amounts of wealth by stepping on people during your lifetime, you will not be forgiven if you give everything away at the end. You're doing something seriously wrong. Do the right thing now, and who cares what you're going to do when you die? The Living Pledge doesn't say you give it all away at the end. The Living Pledge, you give it away gradually during your life. And I respect that. But I would respect it even more if all the money you made was made by not stepping on people and not doing bad for the planet. You know, let's start with that.
I think the only issue with that is that to really have one of these massively large companies, Walmart, Amazon, Tesla, any of those, you need so many vast amounts of people working underneath you that if even raising all of their paychecks to
For living wage.
before, to living wage, you might not be profitable anymore. You might not have the same influence. Shareholders might not be happy, and that's just how the economy works.
Who wouldn't be happy?
Shareholders, investors.
Yeah, there you go.
But here's the thing. I was having a discussion with my father, actually, who's a big fan of steward ownership. And I was trying, I mean, obviously he's much more experienced than me on the world, but what I don't understand is if you are trying to start a steward-owned company where shareholders and investors aren't actually making any profits every year, where is any incentive whatsoever to go and invest in that company? It's kind of similar to what happened with OpenAI, for example. OpenAI started, they were non-profit, were not looking, and they realized we're not going to make any money, we're not going to go anywhere unless we have investors, so they switched to for profit. How do you think that we can change the world and have a good impact while keeping people happy and being able to raise money?
So it's a great question. And the problem with the question is that it puts money as the end game. Raising money, making profit. For me, the most important step is after that. Okay, you've made the money, you've made the profit. What are you actually using it for? As a person, not as a company, right? So you got your dividends. If you just put them on the side in a bank account and you're an interest, it's just sitting there, is it affecting you? No. The moment you take the money out and start spending it, and you start voting with your money, you start to travel, you buy a car, you buy a house, you send your kids to school, then you're starting to use the money. And what you use it for becomes important. Money in itself is not important. How you use it is important. And that's also not the end game, how you use your money. It's how it makes you feel about yourself. How do you feel inside when you spend your money? If you go and you buy a very expensive bag or a very expensive watch, you'll probably be happy for a couple of hours or a couple of days. You're like, oh, I got my new bag.
Yeah, you just get used to it.
Yeah. And then you're like, whatever, and it ends up being in a closet, right? That bag, you spent 10,000 euros on a bag and it made you feel like cool and happy for a couple of days, and then you just forgot about it because you have another 10. But if you take that money and you do something good for your kids, right? You send them to a good school, or you do a little charity and that makes you feel good about yourself, or you take a nice trip. I always say that traveling is the only thing you spend your money on that makes you richer. And it makes you richer because it gives you experiences and it gives you memories.
Could you give an example of that from your own traveling experiences?
Every single trip I take, like now, the last one I took, I did for the first time in my life, I did pack rafting. So pack rafting is where you take an inflatable raft, you carry it around, you get to a point in a river, you inflate it, you get on the boat and you just drift down the river. Hopefully it's not too dangerous. That became a core memory for me all of a sudden. Like, I did something I know I will remember to the day I die. Valuable thing. I spent $200 on it, you know, and I will remember this day till the day I die. So money is important. How you spend it is more important. And what that does for you is the most important. If the way you're spending your money is not making you happy, you're doing something significantly wrong. You're working your ass off to make it, and then you're spending it, and it's not making you happy. It's not making you feel good. You feel miserable. Something's seriously wrong with what you're doing, right? So going back to the companies and the investors and all that, if we have this mindset of, money is important, but how you spend it and how it makes you feel is even more important, then we can start changing a few things. Not everything, not immediately, not all at once, but a little bit at a time. I don't know.
That actually makes sense, because I think that there's so much hype in the world, like, oh, and there needs to be more money made, like you've been saying this whole time, more money made. This investor needs to make more money. Everyone's just striving for money. But when you kind of dissect it down to what are we actually going to do with that money, it kind of changes. How do you actually think, though, systemically, we can make that change and have more investors like yourself who are looking for companies which actually strive for impact rather than just for maximum profits for shareholders? What do you think? It's only simple value alignment that those investors need to have? How do you think that we can change the whole world to prioritize those values and change a system which has been this way for many years?
Well, what we're doing right now is a great step, right? Having these discussions with people amongst ourselves, in an audience there's a lot of great content out there that we don't consume because we prefer to switch on our TV and watch a series at night, or when we drive we listen to music. There's a lot of great podcasts out there that discuss these issues, and by listening to people who you respect, or you read about them and you're like, oh, this guy's done something with his life, I'll listen to him, I'll have and oh, it's interesting what he says. You start to change your mind, and you start to form an opinion based on these podcasts, these documentaries, these, spend more time learning things. And once you start learning facts, which are undisputable, you start to form an opinion which is more interesting than the opinion you previously had. And all that starts to become a discussion with other people like you and like you and like me. And then you go talk to somebody else and you say, you know what? It doesn't matter the day you die how much money you have, and then they click. And all that becomes a movement. The moment we start talking, we stop talking to each other, it's the game over. We have to talk to each other. We have to listen to podcasts. We have to, read books. We have to educate ourselves. That's how we change the world. And we have to be very careful because there's a lot of people out there who don't want the world to change.
And why do you think the system is actually the way it is right now? Why do you think that people earlier on haven't realized that this is what's truly important?
Money became too important. It was so important to me too, until a point in my life, Most people nowadays, I would say 99% of the people I meet, the most important thing in their life after their family, theoretically, is money. But how many people do you know that destroy their families or destroy their kids because of the money, right? It's money, 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 money. And I spent a lot of time also reading about the concept of money, what money truly is, about cryptos and all that. And it just doesn't make sense. Once you start to understand what money truly is, and that unless you use it, it doesn't have any value. It's only the way you use it that has value. It makes no sense. We live in complete absurdity, I think, when it comes to money. We're killing each other for money. We're destroying the planet for money. We're destroying families and people for money, and it just doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And it's all about education at the end of the day.
When you say we're killing people for money, we're destroying families for money, to what extent do you think it's just about money, and how much do you think the identity between money and power has been so closely combined that makes money so important?
That is true. And that's part of how you use the money, right? Money buys you power. And a lot of people are power hungry. They're not money hungry, they're power hungry. But money buys you power. So if you're a trillionaire, you have so much power. But you're one person, And at the end of the day, you shouldn't have all that power. The only people who should have power is the people we elect. But the way we elect them, unfortunately, is the wrong way.
Is by spending our money.
By spending, we elect them by spending our money to the wrong people who then convince us to vote for them, and we vote for the wrong people, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody should have as much power as the multi-billionaires have around the world right now, because they're shaping the agenda whether we like it or not. It doesn't matter if we vote for something else. They will change. We voted for having a better environment for many years, and all of a sudden somebody comes and says, I'm throwing away the EPA rule that says that, we have to make sure that people are healthy. The environment has to be good for people. Or, we're going to drill in Alaska where the last so-and-so animals live. Or it doesn't make any sense to me.
Playing devil's advocate here, you said in the beginning that we vote with the way we spend our money every day.
Mm-hmm.
As devil's advocate, these people do deserve the power that they have because we voted them to where they are with our money.
Exactly.
So why do you think that they don't deserve that power? And if they don't, and you think that they're making bad decisions, do you think that the system has been set up in a way that it's really, really difficult to get people out of this power because people just need Amazon now because it's a monopoly? There's nothing you can really do against it at lower prices?
Actually, it's not a monopoly. There's always another little place that you can go to, right?
You're right.
But it's convenient. It's easy. You click on a button, and a day later, or even the same day in the US, same day delivery, you get a toothbrush. You're like, so cool. But do you need that toothbrush to come to your house now? Can't you just walk your butt like a few yards down the street to the convenience store and buy it? Like, do you really need all the crap you're ordering? No. But it's easy. It's fun. I'm bored. I'm going to shop a little bit because I'm bored. Oh, they have great offers. Ooh, Prime Day. I'm going to buy that thing I never needed because it's 90% off. And then once you step back and you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
You have a moment of eureka and you're like, whoa, I don't need to spend all my money like this. I need to spend less like this. I need to do more traveling. I need to see the world. Yes, you're right. We have voted those multi-billionaires into power because we spend all our money on their products and services. That's how they became successful, and that's how they're running the world. But if we disagree with them, each one of us can make a decision not to support them anymore, to pool our money, to spend it elsewhere. Even it might be a little less convenient to order from somewhere else, or to walk to a store to buy something, or not to have that particular product, or to stop consuming that particular soft drink or whatever. Yes, it's a little inconvenient. But how much inconvenience are you willing to have in your life versus your ethics? It's a balance. It's a balance. You can say, screw ethics. I don't care about ethics. I just want convenience, and I just want the cheap stuff, whatever. Okay, I cannot argue with that.
Can you trace back to the moment in your life where you had this realization about how important that is and why that happened, why that connection was made?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a moment. It was a process, and it started when I decided I needed to change my life and, get out of what I was doing. And I started reading more. This is another thing I always tell people. Spend less time. Like, when I drive my car nowadays, I listen to podcasts. I find interesting podcasts, and that's a great time to listen to things. Most people, when they drive the car, they listen to the radio, the news, and then I don't listen to news anymore. I spend a few minutes every day scrolling through a couple of websites that I know are, not controlled by oligarchs and people who support the wrong people. I read the news there, and I'm okay. I also look at the weather. Then in my car, I want to listen to things, learn things. So I learn about my, lately I've been listening to a lot of longevity podcasts. And that's how I started doing my diet, and I've lost some weight, and I want to be healthier, et cetera, et cetera. I go for long walks for about 8 kilometers. It's good to walk. And during my walks, I always listen to books, audiobooks. It's a very convenient way to consume literature, audiobooks. So when you spend more time educating yourself, your mentality starts to change, especially if you listen to and read the right things. What are the right things? It's the ones that are, scientifically backed. It's not. Don't read books by people who are not important. Read the important stuff. It was a process.
And you've mentioned travel a lot
Yeah.
throughout this podcast on many different topics. How important do you think traveling around the world has been for you in educating yourself?
It's the most important thing I've ever done, because when you travel, you get out of your bubble. We live in bubbles. We have our family bubble, we have our neighborhood bubble, we have our city bubble, then we have our country bubble. Every time you move around in that bubble, you expand your boundaries. You find new things. Even if you travel to Rhodos or Corfu or Thessaloniki, oh look, it's something new, something different. But if you really want to expand your bubble, you have to get to out of your zone. Go to the other side of the world. Go see how other cultures are living. Go to countries. Don't go to countries that are similar to ours. Okay, it's nice to go to Italy, France, whatever. But the first time I actually went to a country and I felt like I was on another planet when the first time I visited Japan. And since then, I visited Japan 19 times. So I went 2014, July, to Japan. 2 days later, I thought I was like in another planet. Nothing was familiar for me. And I expanded my view on the world and how people behave by observing how these people were living. Another thing I love to do when I travel is I don't like hire limos or take taxis. I try to take public transportation as much as possible. I try to go to the local market, see how people are living, what are they buying, what are they eating, how are they interacting with each other. You look at other people, you learn things from them, you learn from other cultures, and that expands your brain, expands your horizons. It's the most important thing you can do. And the other thing you do by traveling is you see the damage we're doing to the planet. You see the rivers of trash in Manila. You see the crap being washed out in Bali, places that used to be virgin and beautiful. You see the cut down rainforests in Brazil. It gives you a different perspective to see it up front than to see it on a video, So meet people, see different cultures, explore the world. It's the best thing you can do. Even if you can spend a little money on traveling, do it. It's the best thing you will ever do for yourself.
And what was so surprising, or I guess you could say attractive, towards Japan that made you revisit it so many times? Was it the work ethic of the people, or?
I think it was a combination of things. It was the politeness of the people, the how structured they were, how organized they were. When the train says it's going to depart at 12:37, if it departs at 12:38, the company issues a formal apology the next day in the media.
I've heard that.
Yeah. So the respect of that society towards each other. In Japan, the individual is not important. It's the group that's important. The company is important. The country is important. The city is important. You are not important. And you know this from the day you're born. And that's very important, because the rest of the world, we have trillionaires because people become too self-important. In Japan, it's more about us, how we will live together and happy, versus how you will live together and happy. And there's a bigger chance that you will also be happy when we are all happy. There are issues in Japan. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some serious societal issues there as well. But what I viewed when I went there, the way people interact, the politeness, the space, the calm, the respect, that fits me as a person a lot.
How do you think that we can replicate the ideology of collectiveness in the West?
We can't. We have to burn everything and start from scratch, because the West is all about me. It's about I, the individual. We value the individual more than the group. We will sacrifice things for the individual in the West. They don't sacrifice things for just one person. It's okay that one person can suffer if the rest of us are going to be okay. Here it's like, oh no, nobody can suffer. So the mentality we have in the West cannot be changed. The West is the West, and it will always be like this, I think.
How do you think we can take steps towards that kind of collectiveness and from the beginning, because you mentioned before as well, kind of from the beginning of your career, wanting to provide impact to the collective society rather than just yourself, and kind of how you said before, it's kind of selfish to say, oh, I just want to give back at the end of my career.
Yeah.
And how do you think that we can follow the ideology from the beginning?
Education, for sure. We need to tweak and change our educational system. You know, in Japan, when the kids first go to school, first of all, there's no cleaning staff at schools, right? The kids clean their schools. There's zero cleaning staff in schools. When they first get to school as young kids, the first thing they learn is manners, and they learn respect for the elders. They don't learn math or language or stuff like that. They start with the basics. What society really wants them to learn. So the educational system is different there. We have to rethink our educational system in the West as well. It cannot be like, hello, okay, language, history, math, blah, 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 and things which are mostly useless nowadays with the advent of AI and all the things that are coming, right? We need to rethink our entire educational system. And if we're lucky enough to be able to put some values in that educational system, which can hold society together in the future, great. If we're not lucky enough, then we're screwed.
Yeah. I also think that I can kind of see what you mentioned before as a society of everybody kind of competing against each other in the West, in myself in some way. Like, I think for me, like later on in my life, I would want to have a pretty big impact on the planet, try to give back. But I think that the only way that you can do that early on is like make as much money as possible. How do you think that ideology can kind of shift what someone like me or somebody else similar saying, okay, I do recognize that having an impact is important, and I do recognize that giving back is important, but first I just want to make as much wealth as possible?
Good question. I would say that, again, what's the end game? Money is not the end game, right? How you're going to use that money and how you're going to feel when you use that money is important. So if all you want is money and then at some point to do some good, that's better than most people. Let's start with that. But if you can start and put in your head the idea that I want to make some money, but from day one, I want to make an impact as well, and try to find the path that will lead you there. There is a path.
Do you think that's a slower and harder path, the way things are set up?
Yes, definitely. It is. But I think it's a more fulfilling path for someone to be able to start your life, your career path, and say, okay, I'm working for the right company, right? I'm doing an internship for the X company that I know is doing the right thing. And I'm the little money I have, I spend it on the right products, or I'm investing a little bit with my dad into the right companies. And it will take me longer to get to my financial goal, but the path to get there will be happier for me. I'm not going to discount my values to get there faster, because it doesn't matter how fast I get there. As long as I have enough and I'm happy with it and I feel good with it, what's wrong with that,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, taking into account how the world is shaped today, if you were 18 years old, present time, what would be one piece of advice you would give yourself moving forward?
Don't listen to your parents. No, I'm kidding. Don't take the easy way out. A lot of the kids who are in this school today probably have an easy way out. Follow dad's path, follow mom's path. Mom has money, dad has money. I'm just going to go to college and I don't know really what I want to do. And I'll just spend 4 years. I'll figure it out. And don't take the easy way out. Listen to what you really want to do and work your butt off and do it. If I could go back to my 18-year-old self, I would slap the shit out of him.
Why?
I would say, listen, don't go to Georgetown because you won't be able to afford it if your dad cuts you off. But go get yourself a good education, but don't do what your parents want. Because I never questioned what my parents wanted. And a lot of kids out there, they don't question what their parents want. They say, okay, it's my parents. They know better. Well, they didn't. I spent 20 years of my life doing something I really didn't want to do. And now somebody else is doing it much better than me, and I'm much happier, and everybody's better off. But I shouldn't have listened to what people were telling me back when I was 18 years old. When you're 18, you're old enough to vote. If you're old enough to vote, you're old enough to make some decisions, okay? And if you might be scared that your decisions might anger your parents, but if you serve them in the right way and you talk to them in the right way, and if they really love you and they want what's really best for you, they will listen to you. So don't take the easy way out, like I did. Don't follow. Go to the path you really want to go to. Don't sacrifice a lot of years of your life until you get to a point and say, "Oh, I made a mistake. Now I need to change things." And most people, they don't even say that. They just go on until the end. Just
Yeah.
that's
right.
what I would do. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
It's
you
fun.
so much.